Hello and welcome to another edition of A Lot of Help with James Lott Jr. I am James Lott Jr. and that's with two T's, not one. And I'm here, and this is a life coaching show. And life coaching is involved and is emerging into very specific areas. It's also as vast as it is specific. And on this show, we've been doing a lot of showcasing and spotlighting of people who are coaches in different areas. I'm a certified life coach in like 4 areas, working on my 5th. So I just know how big it can be. And so this person is somebody I've never taught, never the kind of coach I never talked to. He's a peak performance coach. So I'm going to talk about what that means. And he works with athletic people that are either CEOs, entrepreneurs, or trying to get into the business. And I want to find out what that means specifically. But he's also an athlete himself. You take a look at him, you can tell he's an athlete. Just look at him, you can tell he's an athlete. He's also a professional speaker. And he's the owner of Bergford Performance Systems. And I'm happy to have him on the show, Brian Bergford. How are you, Brian?
James, I'm doing fan-stinking-tastic, man. Thanks for having me on with you. we already got things rolling and having a good conversation. You're like, we got to start recording. We got to get this.
Yeah.
We got to get this on record. So I love it, man. Thanks for having me.
You got the blue memo, so I'm very happy about that. Blue.
I did, dude. We're on the same wavelength. We're on the same page. That's what it's all about. That's how you know it's going to be a phenomenal show.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Okay.
Hit me. That's why I love doing these shows. I've done 500 of these things, but that's what I want to tell you. I've never asked a coach this. Have you ever had a situation where you realize early on you and a client probably won't work well together? Has there ever been a chance that's happened, or has it been the process of, okay, maybe it seems unsure at first, but then turns into something going? Have you ever had instances where it just didn't? You could tell it wouldn't work out?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And I have had instances of that. Typically, I tend to curate a lot of that up front. So like somebody can't just like sign up for coaching, right? I need to talk to them, and I only work with, really tiny handful of people. So I curate that pretty tightly. I definitely have had plenty of people that I've talked to on the front end that I just feel like are going to get their needs met better somewhere else. I prefer not to get into situations where I have to fire clients. It does happen sometimes, but like those are like the people that slip through the cracks, and you kind of admire them a little bit because like, how did you fool me and actually make your way through the filter?
I know what you mean.
It does happen.
But no, it's why I don't think in all the years I've done, I don't think I've ever asked him, like, because it's happening to you. I very rarely have had to fire anybody. I mean, I can think maybe twice I've had to do it in my career, and I've been doing it for 4, 5, 6 years. No, 6 years at this point. But you're right. Usually, you do all the vetting process up front. That's what coaches do. You have certain questions we ask. You have things in place.
Yep.
So you have all that in place. You have all that in place to kind of go through the checklist of before they kind of come on.
Well, it goes back to what you brought up earlier, because I'm really working typically with a very specific niche of athletic entrepreneurs and business owners, and so that's its own sort of animal, that kind of person, right? And so that helps kind of narrow things down quite a bit. And so a lot of times if people are not really fitting that, or if they're not at a super high level performing charge, go, I'm total overkill for you. Like I'm really trying to work with the people who are and oftentimes elite at what they do, and we're like squeezing out that like last little bit to get an extra level of performance. And it's not an easy thing to do when people are really well established, but it's so important. And like a 1% change can make a huge difference across somebody's business, somebody's life, their athletics, like little mental shifts, as you know. It's funny because you and I are speaking to the choir just back and forth through this call, right?
But for the folks out there who are watching and listening, but you and I know, yes.
Yeah. So that's tends to be the niche that I work with, and there's some people outside of that, but the one common denominator is they're really enterprising high performers already, and then we're looking to kick things up a notch or two.
So you actually do my job for me. You're leading me into what I wanted to ask you, and that is because you said peak performance coach with athletic folks in the athletic kind of business, or probably former athletes, whatever. So I was going to ask you: is there a difference in coaching people of athletic backgrounds? I know in the creative world which I'm in, there's a whole different mind. There's, the mindset for musicians, actors, a whole different thing than like somebody else. We know that, and I know you're smiling because it's true.
Yeah.
So with
Yep.
athletics, is it the same thing? It's a whole different mindset when you work with someone who's athletic.
It's definitely a different mindset. And it's funny you said that, because like for me, I love drama and the theater and stuff, and in a bunch of plays in high school and everything. I freaking love all that stuff and the artistic side of it. So I get some of that, but really a lot of it is focused on the athletic side. And I learned this lesson early on because I was right before I graduated high school, I got my personal training certification and went right into teaching simultaneously at like the health club, a normal gym. And
Yeah.
then I was also working with the football team at the university here. And so it's just like the contrast between those two groups, like
I'm sure.
the general public, I'm like, I love you, but you can't stay with me.
I'm sure, right?
I can't handle it, because like the athletes came to play, right? And so anything that I was putting into them was like, there was just a totally different spirit about that. Like they had batteries included. I wasn't pushing limp noodles. I wasn't trying to like talk somebody off ledge and trying to like help them sort of like, come on, it's your freaking job to motivate yourself. It's not my job, right? And I might motivate you inadvertently, and like that's fine, but you better not be counting on me to do it, because there's going to be a point where I ain't around anymore, and you're going to need to know how to absolutely like put that into play, because you have things you need to accomplish in your life and dreams and ambitions that you're going to carry forward. And the question is going to be if you're going to consistently motivate yourself, because most people I have found have kind of fleeting motivation. They'll have moments where they're like, that's so inspiring. And like, inspiration has a really short shelf life, and then you've got to motivate yourself really quickly, and then that's a daily discipline to make sure that you're doing the things to feed your spirit so you have that in play.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is something we've talked about many times on the show, that you get the burst of I'm going to do this. I want the world. I want the whole. You get excited. You're like, okay, but you're right. But then we tell people, well, the work, that's not the work. That's a little burst. The work is the everyday putting into that. It's the execution, and then the continuance of that execution. I mean, that's the hard work. It's not. We get excited. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it. You get gung ho. That's why I hate New Year's resolutions, or that concept, because people get all excited. It's January 1st, and January 3rd, they're like, well, they don't do it anymore. And it's like, it bugs me. I'm like, that's not the point. We're not trying to do that. We're talking long-term goals, right?
You're so right, James. One of my favorite activities every single year is to go to the gym January 1st and look around at all the schlep rocks that are not going to be there in the middle of February. And I'm just like, awesome. Let's see who's going to be here. Let's see who came to play. Like life is a lot of times, especially if you're trying to really kind of move up the ladder and achieve more. To me, it's a game of attrition. I just know like I'm a beast and a workhorse, right? And so like I can get out there and I can show up day after day after day, and so can anybody else. And the crazy thing is most people don't. And I'm like, don't tell me that you can't do it. Oh, you don't understand. I have 4 kids, and like, you just don't know what it is. That's like one of my favorite things. Like, you don't know me. I'm like, that is such a freaking cop out, right? There's people in your situation, people with more kids, people with more businesses than you have, and they're crushing it, and they make you look sick, and now you're making excuses. And it's not like there aren't things that pop up that
of course
affect all of us, but it's like
I know.
the propensity of some people to just show up.
That's what it is. That's just what it is. And I always talk about that's the hard part. You got to create the habit. You got to create this. You create getting in the zone. That's the part you have to create, and that takes work. And so we're not going to sugarcoat it. And I know you have the no BS calls and stuff, so I know all about that. So that's what I'm saying. But like that whole thing is that we're not going to. I mean, you have to do the work. I mean, that's you. I mean, it's like we can bring you to the water, but you got to make sure you fill up the water bottles, you drink it, and you make sure. I mean, that's all on you, right?
Yeah. And there gets a point where, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit too, where sometimes you do work with people and you feel like, you know what, like, this is ridiculous. I am not going to be more committed to your success than you are. I will support you. I will be empathetic, but I will not put up with your BS. Like, this is entirely ridiculous. If you want BS, go talk to your friends that complain just as much as you do. But like, don't come bring that stuff to me. It makes me mad when I do it with myself. Like, I'm talking to myself here.
I know,
And
right?
right? Like, a lot of the things that I know now that really help me engage with clients and help them kick things up a notch, it's because like I've screwed this up really bad a lot. And I know from experience how not to step in it now. And I don't want people wasting time spinning cycles, right? Like, we're here on this earth for whatever amount of time, we're not sure. And
I know.
take advantage of it, you
So
know?
I mean, then I feel probably like I do because I'm certified in areas that I work in and that I do personally myself. So I just feel like some of the best coaches, what type of work they do is what they do also. So I'm assuming you being an athlete must also lend it to be where you can really know how to talk to your clients because it's relatable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I own multiple businesses. I'm a competitive athlete. Like, that whole thing sprang out of me just getting sick and tired of having a lifelong phobia of having my face submerged in water. And I got sick and tired of tolerating my own BS and my excuses. And I was like, this is over now. I don't care how terrifying it is. We're going to get this done. And it's that one step at a time thing, showing up day after day. Because that now people are, if it wasn't for the wonderful gift of COVID, um,
Yeah.
like, I would have been or I would have just finished my like sixth national championship, right? And like, that was never something in the beginning. I just wanted to get over a fear because I knew that that was very incongruent, like allowing something that was fearful or like a phobic response to stop me from living fully. I would have never anticipated like, oh yeah, I'm going to end up going and like having this dream of like qualifying for nationals and going and swimming and competing like that. That wasn't even on my radar. And, I just always like to encourage people. You never know what's down the road for you with like taking little steps. And sometimes people get this, excuse me, this grand vision, and it almost like trips them up sometimes because it's too big and it's too out there and too audacious. When they really try and break it down and walk their way back, they just can't see how they can get there. And this is where it comes, like, don't despise small beginnings. Start with something small, move forward, take a step at a time. And if you are tempted to take a day off, that's fine. Like, just join the ranks of all the other average people in the world and live with that. Right. So I'm using some sarcasm, but like, I really love people, and I don't know that sometimes we all can underestimate ourselves at times, many a times, right? Like, myself included. And it's just, sometimes you need somebody in your life, and if it's not you, get around a coach or influence, people who influence and inspire you, that are not going to tolerate the limitations that you have accepted.
Ryan, you are my new best friend because I would tell you something. In my business, and folks know my book that's out, Small Steps Lead to Large Rewards, I'm all about starting small. Because, and I know, my first thing was organizing, professional organizing, and I did that for like 11 years. And the thing we find, and this is a great analogy, is that people go, okay, I want my house clean and cleared out. But when you say that, great. It's a great goal. So you talk about your big dream, but it's too big. And what happens is inertia happens. A lot of people don't do anything because it's too big. Like seeing that pile of clothes, I gotta clear that pile, and then you just don't do nothing because it becomes too out of your reach for you. So I always say, it's good to have that dream somewhere, but don't think that way. Just think, wow, I'm going to change my habit today of just dropping the shoes by the door. I'm going to just change the habit today of going to the store and buying that thing I don't need. Like, I always think of the small, I was like, let's start small.
Have you been following me around, James?
No, you're following me, but not really. That's good. No, I'm saying you're a kindred spirit. I love that. I'm all about the whole small. When you said that, I go, that's the point. It's like, and I'm sure with athletics and with business, we all have big lofty goals. We all have big things we want to, of course, I want this. but you can't really go there. You can't go from 1 to 100 in 2 seconds. You have to go 1,
Right.
2, 3, 4, right? You know that, right? I mean, you have to do that, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. And I'm like, I can't believe I know you saw me just drop my shoes on the floor by the door, man. um, no, you're exactly.
Put a
you're
put a
ex-
basket over there so you can drop the shoes in there, or a rack.
oh my
You got
God,
you.
dude. You don't even want to know. But people should not talk to me about organizing. And but it's funny. It's funny because like when you're talking about having that big compelling vision and that big dream out in front of you, I think one of the things that's really important is you've got to be already rolling in that direction before you set huge goals like that, because if you do it when you're at a dead stop, that lack of, it's like the inertia killer. And so like take like little bitty steps at a time, and then don't be afraid to like dream and have huge ambitions and really really put that out in front of yourself. But if you do that on the front end, it's very very difficult for most people to hang with it, which is sort of like the New Year's resolution thing. Is like, how about you just like set something up like, I'm still going to be going to the gym 16 days from now. That would be fan flippin-tastic, right? Because then you can like set a new goal at that point. We can take things in little chunks. I don't think most of us can take things in big chunks unless we really, really have a ton of drive and energy going. Like, I want to win a national championship because like that's awesome. If I can inspire people and be somebody who went from like having this phobia of water, and I'm not a stereotypical like swimmer in terms of like my body or anything like that, and if I can go out and create something like that in the future, like I love that, because I know that's going to inspire other people to move toward their purpose. And if it's even for one person, that would totally be worth it. But I had a lot of momentum going before I put that crazy vision out in front of myself, in a long time before I spoke it out loud, because it was kind of freaky to me. But if I had set that at the beginning, before I even had started to get in the water and work with the coach and learn how to swim, and I was like, I want to be a national championship or champion someday, that would have just been so in another universe. I feel like that would have actually been detrimental to me.
Yeah, and I'm all about the kind of the small step, and I think so. You said something else that was very interesting. Um, it's just that we can talk ourselves out of anything. As long as you know that we can do that, and walking through something. And for me, I'm a very pretty fearless guy. If you Google me, you said you 10,000 things, and they're all things I've tried, and they kind of led somewhere. You're gonna laugh. So I used to go to the barber all the time because that's what you do, and I get my head shaved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my head, I had a little afro because of COVID at one point for 4 months at the house, and my best friends was like, James, I'm buying you clippers. And I always said I'm afraid to shave my own head. I just never done it. My brother has a head like he shaves his head every day and this whole thing. He actually uses a razor and all stuff. I'm like, I'm afraid to do it. So he bought me a beautiful razor. I mean, it's beautiful. You plug it into the computer. It's really nice and everything. And I was scared. I mean, seriously scared S-less. I'm trying not to cuss on here. But then one night, I had a glass of wine, which I don't say you should do this with a glass of wine, but luckily my hair grows so fast. I mean, this is already a week. It's already back. But I went into the bathroom and I said, you know what? I got to walk through the fear. I said, it's just fear of the unknown. And I was talking myself out and going, but I was like, talk yourself into it. It's just hair, James. You're at home. Wear a hat if you have to, if you mess up. Like, it's all these things I talk myself into, but I was walking through the fear. It's like, you have to do it. And then once I did it, I did that first shave on the side and I felt better. I was like, oh, I can breathe again. And then the other side, and now I shave my head every 2 or 3 days. I'm always shaving all the time. Now I'm fine. And as you see, it looks pretty good when I think it's okay. But it was walking through that fear because I was talking myself out of it. I had talked myself into it. You said something about that earlier about walking through like the whole thing of going to swim and stuff. It's like you have to kind of just do it. I mean, not with wild abandon or anything, but you prepare, but like just do it, right?
Yep. There always comes that moment of truth where you you have to cross the threshold, and I think that's what you're pointing to. And some people balk at the threshold and other people cross it, and it's not like we're relegated to being one of those types of people. That's the thing, right? Whenever we get into this like, I'm this kind of person or I'm that kind of person, first of all, we need to be really careful what we attach ourselves to, what we say is wrong with us, how we identify ourselves especially to ourselves and the things we're saying. But I love that talk yourself into it thing, man. Like, I love that so much because our minds are made to talk us out of things to keep us safe. Like, that's just that whole amygdala hijack thing.
Yeah, you got it.
That's the course of human nature. If you're not like working uphill, like, all great things are accomplished uphill, and occasionally like there's a little nice downhill section, but it's because you worked your buns off to go up the hill. And if you want to keep cresting the next peak, you've always got to be like working and moving up. And it's not the easiest thing to do in the world, but it definitely can be done.
And folks, he does have a degree in psychology when he was in Colorado. And he had an interest in neuroscience, psychopathology, clinical psychology, and the principle of peak performance. So he does know mind stuff. I'll make sure I get that out there. He does. He went to school. And he knows some mind stuff. Now I want to ask you something. We're gonna go from that to, what are some of the traits of athletes that make it different than, like I said, than creatives like myself? That I'm just kind of curious, like, because you actually, that's your specialty. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so working with athletes, I guess, who become professionals, what are some of their traits that you have to like work with?
What's interesting about this is there is definitely crossover to like the artistic side,
Right.
right? Because I definitely love working with artists too, because anybody that's really dedicated to their craft and truly at a high level, they basically share the same type of mentality, and there's variations in terms of like how that manifests itself. But essentially, we're all kind of working on the same level. There are some peculiarities, of course, about athletes, especially competitive athletes. A lot of them, the ones I like at least,
Smiling, like, yeah.
the they're actually generally really, really like nice social people, but they are brutal when you get on the court or in the
Right.
pool with
All right.
them or anything like that. Like, they will flip a switch and they will go into like murder mode, and like they just want to like kick butt and take names. And I think that's important though, because some athletes, and I work with this in some of my clients, because if they're entrepreneurs, right, and like they're running companies and they're competing in like Ironmans and stuff like that, you get into a lot of issues with people that they don't have an off switch and they don't have a dimmer switch. So they have basically one or two levels they operate at all the time, and they just run really hot
Oh, wow.
constantly.
Okay.
And it's freaking exhausting. And even if and people can get addicted to that, because it's like that adrenaline go, go, go. But I'm like, you're going to short out your adrenal glands. Like, man, take a step back. We have got to get some things handled to make sure that you are taken care of. You don't need to take a 3-month sabbatical. I'm not talking about that, but like, let's
Kind of like spread it out a little bit. It's kind of like, okay, you do for this, but don't do it. You don't need 24/7, right? You don't have to do it 20. Be that at level 24/7.
right. And even I know we were talking about when we first got on, like, you were talking about how you meditate every day. I think that's such a brilliant practice to have, because the mind needs to be robust. And if it only functions at one level, it doesn't have, when we talk about artistry, especially in music and things like that, you want to have different dynamics, with the exception of death metal that I'm not really into. You've got to have dynamics. You have to have somewhere to go. That's what gives things the richness. It can't always be full tilt, because it steals the magic, and it just becomes numbing after a certain time. And that's sometimes what I think people are doing, is things to numb themselves, to not look under the hood. I can't tell you how many people I know that don't meditate. I'm just like, you're missing the boat, dude. Like, I get it. And if you think it's boring,
I know.
or you can't sit still for that long, or I've had people tell me, like, I don't like they don't like being by themselves because of what they start to find out. So I'm like, you might want to work through some of that.
I'm gonna
No?
do. I have a bell.
Boom. I
That's right.
love it, dude. That's
That
awesome.
I always have bells straight. No, that's serious knowledge, Brian. When you say that, people are afraid to see things. That's what it is. When you get quiet, you see more. Isn't that funny? It's like when you're not talking, it's like talking, listening. See, there's a whole thing, and then there's a whole active thing. I teach this in my courses. the art of listening, and listening is literally, it's an art form. But when you truly listen, stuff's revealed, and you may initially feel like, I don't want to know this, or I don't like this, or what does this mean? And you get scared. Like you said earlier, you just want to protect you. We're natural protectors. We want to protect ourselves when it comes to our feelings. For meditation, for me, it's just been, it's like there's times you need to just shut the F up sometimes. As I always tell people, you need to shut the F up. Well, I say it, the real word. And it's nice. It's nice, Brian. It's nice just to kind of see. I have a beautiful garden, so I have a garden. I may have my tea sometimes, or whatever. And I go out there, and I have some books that I read and stuff. And a lot of times, it's just me with my eyes closed, just really getting in tune with my trees, my plants, and myself. Trying to stay grounded, because I can't do this. I do a lot. I can't do this 24/7. I tell you, this is my passion, but your passion can't kill you. So you have to, like, I want to continue to be my passion, which means I only do it 24/7. I need to go away from, like you just said, go away from it. Take time from it. Not 3 months at a time like that, but it's like throughout my week, there are times I don't do anything for my jobs. I'm just like, I do something, I watch something on Netflix, or I do something crazy, or I do a puzzle or whatever. I'm just like, no, go for a walk or whatever. I do stuff away from it. I think it's very important.
Yeah, and I think that when you're doing that restorative replenishing and the introspection and all those pieces, one of the reasons legitimately some people may not want to delve into that, and I've found this with plenty of people that I've worked with in helping them overcome this, if they don't want to really spend that time being quiet and reflecting inward, sometimes that can be legit. Like they won't, they kind of almost intuitively know that they won't be able to process the information that they find. And so sometimes it goes to an unhealthy place where they will talk about it, but only after a few glasses of wine with some friends that do not have the knowledge to actually support those people through it. They love them, and that's important. We've all got to have people around us, but if there's something you really, really, truly need to work through, you got to get with somebody who is qualified to help you walk through it instead of ignoring something. Because if you have, a phenomenal performance car, I don't care what it is, if you have a Bugatti or whatever, if there's a bunch of crap in the fuel tank, there's going to be a problem, and you might get away with it for a while. But when you have these signs and these signals that you're not performing at a level that some part of you knows, like I should be able to do this, a lot of times those things can be blockages, right? It can be, the misalignment of like the values and beliefs that we have, or in our mind and our spirit and everything, our psychology being pointed in a particular direction and having that alignment, like no kinks in the hose, right? Like the water is flowing through. And so it's not always just a matter either of putting in more effort. Sometimes it's slowing down, getting the kinks out of the hose, and you can't do that if you're just charging on to the next thing. And again, as I said at the outset, I know this because I've done it wrong.
I want to tell people, most of us coaches, not all, we are speaking from experience, and we're not saying we're better than anybody else. We're not up
Right.
here and you're down here. The point is, we want everybody to be up here. That's kind of our point. We all want to operate the same way, and some of us have training and experience, but we're sharing that with you to help bring you to a space where you can function and be at your optimal selves. I mean, that's kind of the point. We're not saying that, look at us, we're almost better. Like, we're always coaches. Some coaches have coaches. I have mentors. We're not all just like psychiatrists have psychiatrists. Like we all kind of have people that we're still learning also, right? The education never stops, right?
The education, and when the education does stop, things fall apart, and you become a bottleneck, especially if you're a leader in an organization, if you own a company. If you're not truly growing and learning new things, and if you're not staying fresh, that's a huge disservice to the people that you have brought on board and that are following your lead, because people can smell stagnation, and it affects other people too. It's not just about like any of us, right? So like I always want to keep growing and have coaches and mentors, because I gotta get my poop in a group, right? And I gotta keep things rolling the right direction. And have the capacity to have the confidence and be able to inspire people. And if you're authentically, truly growing and you have this vibrance about you and people can feel it, it's palpable, so important when you're leading people.
Yes. I can talk to you forever, Brian, but I can't do that. So you got to come back on the show again. You have to come back on. You
I would
are
love to, dude.
you are amazing. You are amazing, and congratulations on all the work that you're doing and the work you continue to be doing on yourself and others. That. Tell folks where they can find you on social media or on websites. So this is your chance to promote.
There you go. Shameless promotion time.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, just go to my website, which is bergfordperformance.com. Bergford is spelled Berg like iceberg, Ford like the car company. So bergfordperformance.com, and make sure that you opt into my email list, because first of all, there's a couple of great opt-in bribes. There's a briefing I put together on 5 lessons I learned when I went down and was training at the Olympic Training Center at a performance camp, as well as access to my app that I recently launched. And I loaded it with a ton of free content and materials for people that they can get. So opt into my email list, because that's also where I keep in contact with folks. So that's the way to do it.
Perfect. I'll make sure it's in the description below, or above, or wherever I put the descriptions on. It'll be in there.
It'll be here.
It'll be here. I always go, because like right now, I would say, follow us on YouTube. The subscribe button. It's either here or it's here. I can't remember where it is. It's one of those things. So go ahead and
it's here.
This way. Right. So go ahead and follow us there and subscribe and comment. And if you're a little nervous and want me to introduce you to them, I can do that. I can make the introductions. Don't worry. We can work that out also. So that's not a problem. If you have any questions for him, you can pass them on to me and I'll pass them on to him too. And you can work with him. But go to his email, go to his website, go to his emailing list and get in contact. This show is everywhere. We're on every streaming audio platform, which is from iHeartRadio to Spotify to Google, Apple, everywhere. So go ahead and just go to Lott of Help. Again, it's with 2 T's, not one, with James Lott Jr. And this interview with others will be on there. So go ahead. And if you think somebody needs to hear this interview, pass it on, share it, tell a friend. And then also the YouTube channel is JLJ Media, where I have over 35 shows on the network, from not just from me, from other people. And it ranges from Star Wars to the soaps and everything in between. So you might find something you like while you're on there. Of course, I'm a lottofhelp.com. I am a certified life coach in 5 different areas, and you can hire me also if you need me for anything. It doesn't matter where you're from. You can contact me. We can talk. And also you can find me where all James Lott Juniors are sold, at James Lott Jr. on all the social media platforms, even TikTok. I'm on there also. So giving advice on how to think of things. So I'm doing stuff on there too. Brian, thanks for being on the show. Thank you so much. You're amazing. And everyone, please take care of yourselves and each other and have compassion.